For my video review, I decided to watch DamNation and GasLand. It was inspired by a guy that got a phone call that said, "Hey, we'll pay you $100,000 if you allow us to drill for natural gas on your property." And before agreeing or disagreeing to the deal, he set out on a cross-country road trip to talk to citizens that did agree and see the environmental risk of agreeing to the deal. Maybe Josh Fox set out on his journey to figure out what he needed to do for personal gains or benefits, but it became much bigger than that, and I believe his major goal was to bring awareness to natural gas and the harms associated with fracking. Josh Fox accomplishes this goal by setting out cross-country. He goes into individuals' houses and talks to them about their experience with natural gas and the drilling on their land. It's a sad story. You see individuals that turn on their faucet that have signs that say, "Do not drink this water," set a match to it and it blows up. Or you see their animals sick, you see they're sick, you see their children that are sick from natural gas companies coming in and drilling on their property. You don't just get the story from the citizens, you get to see in providing footage from public hearings. You see politicians talk about it, you get to see scientists discuss it, and you get the whole story, and he does it in a way where anybody, any individual in the United States could understand it. I think the way he goes about it gives a voice to people that normally don't have a voice. As we talked about and read about in Carolyn on page 191, the poor population is normally the population that's most vulnerable to the effects of natural gas and drilling. And Josh Fox gives them a voice and allows them to be heard. Carolyn says on page 188, natural gas produces substantially less CO2, 35 to 66% lower than that emitted by coal-fired power plants. And we hear this and we're easy to accept it and continue. And I think Josh Fox does a good job of saying, "Hey, slow down. Look what this is doing to Americans. Look what this is doing to people like me and you." The other movie I watched is DamNation. Its main purpose is to show people why dams have outlived their usefulness. It shows people and it tries to prove to people that dams aren't necessarily a good thing, and they aren't necessarily worth the money and the harms that they're causing to the environment. DamNation sets about a goal of bringing light to this issue by simply just going to different dams and looking at before and after, and looking at the effects, on not only the animals, not only the habitat, but the people. At one point in the film, you see a huge salmon trying to jump. It's jumping 20 feet in the air, just trying to reach the spawning grounds that lie past the barricade or the dam. You get to hear the voices of people that can no longer fish the river for sources of food to live off of. So you get to see the animals struggle and learn about how the animals have had to change their migration patterns because of dams. You get to hear and see the people talk about how their lives have changed. And then you get the scientific facts about how, in the historical perspective of how we just built so many dams and they're not necessarily worth the benefit. And how most dams have outlived their usefulness. And if they have, tear them down. So the movie producer then goes through certain dams and the fight for tearing dams down. After a few years, you get to see the livelihood of the river and the plants and the animals come back to life after you remove the man-made dam. Similar to GasLand, DamNation gets the perspective from multiple angles. Both of the movies do a great job of providing a scientific and historical background to support what they're saying and what they believe to be true. One point of differentiation between DamNation and GasLand is DamNation is sponsored by Patagonia, and so the quality of film and the quality of the interviews and the pictures in general is much higher than GasLand. GasLand's this guy that's setting out and going about his way to figure out an answer to a question that becomes a much bigger deal than it is. But I don't think that takes away from the validity of GasLand. I think it just adds a different perspective that is not necessarily detrimental to the film. Derek Jensen always talks about how our culture is killing the environment. After watching DamNation and GasLand, I would have to agree even further. Both movies do a good job of diving into the harms that dams and fracking are causing to animals, to the habitat, to our environment, to our home. And it makes you want to step back and say, what can I do to make this place better? As Derek Jensen always says, if you're not doing anything to make the place better, if you're not doing anything to not harm the environment, then why are we here?